Like a vault. I need Alka-Seltzer. Joining me now to tell us more about the death of women's sports and Title IX is congressional candidate for New Hampshire's 1st District, Karoline Leavitt. Karoline, great to have you. Great to see you.
Great to see you, David.
Well, look, recently you wrote an article about this issue in the Washington Examiner. It was titled "Transgender Ideology is Trampling Title IX." So tell us more about what Title IX kind of is and what's happening to it here, Karoline.
Yeah, absolutely. So Title IX was literally signed into law very simply to protect equality and fairness in women's sports. And I could go through an entire list of women pioneers who fought long and hard to get that federal legislation signed. It was signed back in 1972 by Richard Nixon. And now we see decades later, in 2021, President Biden, on day one of office, signed an executive order that he does not have the legal authority to do, that essentially allows schools and institutions and leagues to trample all over a law that is already signed in the books at the federal level. And that is his executive order that he signed on day one. It was a day one priority for this administration to appease the radical left in our country and trample all over the rights of women in this country to play in fair, safe, and equal sports. And that's why we have men like Leah Thomas absolutely demolishing women who worked so hard to earn those scholarships in the swimming pool. By 38 seconds, this is happening across the country. And I've decided to take a very strong stance on this issue, be a vocal voice for these women and girls who are facing these injustices. And when I'm elected to Congress, you can bet that I will be fighting for them on the House floor.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you got to be offended in so many different ways. I mean, you're a female, number one. You're a former NCAA athlete as well. I mean, you bring up in the article that conservatives, and I put that in air quotes to a degree, are really failing to bring this issue to light. Why is that? I mean, why are so many conservatives fearful of speaking out about this? It's an obvious injustice to women. This is insane stuff going on right before our eyes.
That's exactly right. And that's what I wrote about in my op-ed, because we've seen this for years, right? This is how we go from 1972, women finally achieving equal justice under the law, thriving in athletics, to 2021. It is not progression, it is regression. As you mentioned in your monologue, I couldn't shake my head any harder in agreement with that, because we've elected leaders who have failed to conserve our fundamental values, which are that men and women are inherently different but equal. That is a basic scientific truth that unfortunately our leaders have not they've lacked the courage to speak up on that, to stand on the House floor and defend women and girls, to go to these NCAA meets and say, no, this is outrageous, enough is enough. And the interesting part is the overwhelming majority of Americans actually agree with us on this issue. If you look at the polling, even Democrats and independents think it's unfair for men like Leah Thomas to be competing against biological females and stripping away all of their accolades and their scholarships. So we need strong conservative voices to finally stand up and stop the left's perverse worldview in its tracks, because it's destroying our society.
Yeah, and you say strong because that is so true. Do you feel, in essence, like this is the problem, that they want to be liked by the New York Times and the latte sipping crowd, and it just feels like, you know, they just, there's no backbone here, none.
That's exactly right. And I will tell you, there's a wave of young candidates like myself across this country who do have spines of steel and who are sick of seeing our conservative leaders just flack to the left. Because unfortunately, when you reach your hand across the aisle and compromise with the left, they always win. We are always giving up a little bit of our values in order for them to keep pushing their ideologies. It's why socialism is literally here in America. It's why Marxism is literally in our classrooms in this country. And it's why biological men are allowed in collegiate athletics to compete against females. It's hard for me to even articulate that.
And it's such a good point, because we always, like, some conservatives like, well, we'll just meet them in the middle. We'll compromise. Or they'll say, hey, whatever they do in their private life is what they do. No, but that's the thing. It's not just about their private life. They want to literally redefine society. That's the problem. It's not just inside. We always hear inside the bedroom. Forget inside the bedrooms, now inside the walls of the church is the problem. So anyhow, I'm curious, why aren't more feminists actually speaking out about this? I mean, is it because they truly believe in the idea that gender is fluid, or are they also just scared of society's view of them?
That's exactly right. Where are all the feminists with the pink hats who were marching all around Washington, D.C. when I worked for President Donald Trump? They are silent on this issue, and they allow Leah Thomas's teammates and those who he competes against for their rights to be trampled on, for this injustice to occur. So again, feminism is not actually standing up for women, unfortunately, anymore. It is just another arm and another term that's used to push the left's perverse narrative, which is to strip masculinity. It's to tackle family, traditional values. Family is the cornerstone of our society. And if we lose that, then we are going to lose America as we know it. We've seen it in every communist and socialist country in the world. They take away family, they erode what that means, and your society will fall. And that's truly the point we're at. It's one of the many reasons I've decided to run for Congress in my home state of New Hampshire, because we need people with spines of steel to go to DC and stop this stuff in its tracks.
Yeah, for sure. I got about a minute left, or a little less, actually. Tell us about the congressional race that's going on up there. What's it like navigating that terrain in the live free or die state? What's the pulse up there, Karoline?
It is going so well. New Hampshire is my home state. I'm running in a conservative seat, New Hampshire's first congressional district. I grew up here in a business family, and people are so genuinely excited to see a young, dynamic candidate like myself pay attention to them, because we've never really had that before. So I'm in diners every morning, in bars every night, talking to voters and making sure they hear my message. We've raised nearly $1 million. So if any of your listeners want to join our fight, they can go to my website, karolineforcongress.com. That's Karoline with a K. I would be the youngest ever elected and the first Republican woman, because that is what we have here, women and men, to the House of Representatives from New Hampshire.
That is fantastic. That's the future there, folks. Karoline Leavitt, hey, great to see you from your White House days. I really appreciate it. It's great to reconnect.
You too, David, anytime. God bless.
Yeah, you too. Spines of Steel, a spine of steel that we just interviewed. And as she mentioned, which I thought was a really important point, there are actually a groundswell of spines of steel all around the country. But once again, you know, it's one thing to be a spine of steel. How many times am I going to say spine of steel? It's one thing to be a spine of steel. That's great, but you need to bring a neighbor. You need to educate your friends and family and all that, because it's going to take. Oh, I'm going to say this. I'm going to use Hillary Clinton's line. It's going to take a village of spines of steel. Back in a moment.